Hi, my name is Gwen Crum, and I'm a WVU Extension agent in Wood County. And I'm going to do a recipe today with you called pork chops with a maple pear glaze. So this is a recipe we use in our Dining with Diabetes program. Dining with Diabetes is a program for people with diabetes and their caretakers, so they can learn about diabetes, and also they can learn some cooking techniques and some recipes that will help them manage their diabetes and hopefully live healthier lives. This is a great recipe in the wintertime because it kind of mixes that sweet and savory flavors and gives you that comfort food feeling. So before we get into the recipe itself, or demonstrating the recipe, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the ingredients we're using. So obviously it's a maple pear glaze that we're going to be putting on these pork chops. So I have bought some local maple syrup. And while it might seem odd that we're using maple syrup in a recipe for people with diabetes, we're only going to use a couple tablespoons. And so you're not going to be getting a lot of sugar, but it does give us that true maple flavor. And so I have some actual maple syrup here that we're going to use. Also, I'm going to be using something called a Splenda brown sugar blend. So this blend is a great substitute for brown sugar. It's partial brown sugar and partial Splenda. You can use it as a substitute for brown sugar, and the information on the back gives you the conversion if you're needing to use it in a different recipe. But it is one of the ingredients in this recipe. And then we're also going to be using cloves in this recipe. And if that's not something you're familiar with, cloves is something that they often use in the sweet potato casserole or a pumpkin pie. It's a great fall and winter spice that we use in a lot of different recipes. So that is going to be something we're also going to be using. These are ground cloves. Some recipes also will call for whole cloves, but this specific recipe calls for ground cloves. I'm also going to be then, of course, using actual pears. And so a trick that it's important to remember with pears is sometimes when you get pears in the grocery store, they are not yet completely ripe. And so they're hard, they're difficult to bite into, and they're difficult to cut up, which is what we're going to do with this recipe. So a little trick for that is to just put the pear inside the brown paper bag for a few days. I bought these pears about 4 days ago. And so I just put it in a brown paper bag, close that up, and leave it set on your countertop or in maybe a warmer place in your kitchen, not directly on the stove, obviously, but somewhere that it's going to be warm but also dry. And over time, those pears will ripen up and make it so that you're able to cut those pears. So those are some of the ingredients we're going to be using. I wanted to tell you a little bit about as we get into the recipe. So this recipe is going to use 2 pork chops. So I have purchased boneless pork chops, but you may also use bone-in. Either way, they will work and you'll get the same result. Just depends on your preference and what sort of pork chops you like. So these are going to be 2 boneless pork chops, and I'm going to put them in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes at 350 degrees. So I've got all these ingredients in my pan: the butter, the cloves, the brown sugar blend, and the pears and the mustard. And we're going to let this cook until the juices of the pears release, and it makes a fruity little glaze that we'll be able to put over our pork chops once they've finished baking. So I've taken the pork chops out of the oven, and I'm going to check to make sure that they have reached an internal temperature of 160 degrees. And then I'm going to show you the glaze here, which has been cooking and releasing the juices from those pears. Once it started boiling, I turned it into a low simmer, and it's been cooking on my stovetop while the pork chops are baking in the oven. And so you can see that those juices are released, and we have a nice little glaze here on our pork chops. So as you can see, I have plated the pork chop with half of the maple pear glaze, and this is going to be a great entree for your dinner that you could pair with a non-starchy side dish to have a healthy meal. If you or someone you know would be interested in participating in a Dining with Diabetes class, please contact your local extension office for in-person classes near you, or visit our website at extension.wvu.edu for a list of virtual classes.